Hey guys, it's Andy again. Welcome to the second part of this screencast for designing a landing page for a product. What sucks, I'll say it up front, I recorded this, I don't know, an hour ago, and of course the audio did not work. I have the video still, but I was having some audio difficulties. So what I think I'm going to do is basically recreate what I did just to show you guys the process. It won't be authentic because obviously I've already done it, but I'll go ahead and show you where I ended up with it on the previous kind of try. So if you remember before, we had the hero image after the last video ended, and then we ended up adding I guess more of about the product itself, and there's this campaign we have going around for the marketing purposes. The big tagline is "What makes you smile," and for this product especially, it deals with both a lifestyle and also the product itself is geared towards people who are interested in not like what's the word, I don't know, having a healthier alternative for a drink as opposed to something filled with sugar or fake stuff that's actually good for your teeth and enamel and stuff like that. So I'll walk you through first the design, and then we'll take it from there and recreate this. So if you remember, we did have this hero image. Below that, we had the an image that's actually featured on the packaging art. I'll have to pull that up real quick here. Let me find it. So if you look in the Illustrator file, that biking or mountain biking image is actually in the very background. If you can see, it's just kind of a opaque texture, if you would, on the back there. And then we've taken some of the imagery we found in this collage and added it back into. So a lot of the copy we've added is from this box for now. I didn't have any to really begin with, but we will go back in and update that because I really do prefer to design using real content. That way it gives you a real inclination of when maybe a line breaks or what size typefaces to use and whatnot. I really recommend you do that as well. Lorem Ipsum is great for prototyping, but I wouldn't, as far as designing a real in case scenario, I would use the real stuff. So here I'm breaking my own rule. Bear with me there. I'll come back and edit that towards the end. But as you can see, going down the page, we have this kind of angled feel going on. So we'll recreate that. And then part of the packaging or branding itself features this guy here, which is kind of a symbol as opposed to the text itself. That's for scenarios where this is too big or too long to add somewhere for branding purposes. So in this case, I've added it here as kind of an accent for a section called YH2O drink, which in my thoughts would be just a place to kind of give a background of what it is, why it exists, and why you should care, pretty much. And we created this little call out for that reason. And then below that, this is actually content from that packaging I just showed you. So it's more or less answering this question of why promote oral health, and we went ahead and added that. You can read that or pause the video to see that. And this is a placeholder for what I'm thinking will be an image of Jamie, who is the actual proprietor of the product. So I'll probably either put her image there or something that kind of ties her to this, because it's her bread and butter, her baby. So that's as far as I got. That was about an hour video, and of course no audio recorded. So what I'm going to do now is kind of go back in time and recreate this. So you'll have to forgive me for that. I wish I could have shown you the whole thing as I went through the process, but I figured this is just as good, if anything. So let's start with copying that hero section back over. So at this point, I think in that last video I definitely changed this button. It was purchase, and I changed it back to, or not back to, I changed it to try H2O drink. And then I changed this to our mission instead of, I think, about or whatever I had. Reason for that is what came, from these sections here. So, yeah. So you might just see me copying some stuff over from this one, but I'm going to try to recreate it my best I can. So let's dive in. So this next section, we used a photo that I pulled from the packaging. Where is it? Right here. Cool. So I'm going to throw this in Affinity Designer, and it's massive, which is a good thing. I hate when photos are too small. So what I'll do is throw this behind our hero image for now, and it'll have that kind of cutoff effect. And I might scooch it up a bit. And then one thing, when I was going through this, I noticed that the background, there's no real, I guess, nice way of this continuing on. I don't know how to describe it, but basically there's no nice way of this blue bleeding into the image itself. So what I ended up doing is adding a new layer that is a gradient that goes over top of that. So I believe I created a new blank layer. I added this gradient here, and it was kind of like something like this, but then I toyed with the colors for sure. So let me select that again, or can I? Okay, maybe it's because it's a pixel layer. I need to do its own layer. Hang on. What are we doing? Let's try add layer. Oh, that's why. It just needs to be a regular layer. My bad. Okay, so then we'll add this gradient in. Still don't see it. That's interesting. Is it because this is odd. Okay, maybe I'll create a shape and then do this. So I'll do something like this. Cool, and then that will be like a black color for now, and we'll do a gradient on this guy, something like so. But what we want to do is make this part translucent, so I remove the opacity there. Oh, I messed that up a bit. And then to kind of give it some depth here, I went ahead and did something like this. I actually like it a little darker than I did before. And then I went back and retouched that layer itself, added a mask. And a neat thing about Affinity that you can't really do in Illustrator or Sketch that easily anyway, is there's personas. And in these personas you can do different things. The one we're in is I believe draw is what it's called, but it's more or less geared towards vector art. Then there is a pixel one, which you can think of like Photoshop inside of Illustrator capabilities. It's not as verbose, but it's very useful in the sense that if you need to do a mask like I'm about to do, it's freaking awesome. So And then there's the export, which we'll get into that later. That one's super useful for like UI design and icons and stuff. So let's switch over to Pixel. And in this persona, you notice the tools change. The toolbar at top changes. I don't have this customized like I did on the other one. If you have Affinity Designer, you'll notice probably different tools at the top here. That's just my preference. I don't use a lot of clicking. I like to use key commands the most. So the stuff I don't is typically aligning or joining paths or something like that. So back to Pixel Persona. This one, I make use of the brush tool, which is pretty sweet because you can go and do something like this. If you're used to Photoshop and layer masks, it's the same deal. So since I did that gradient, it's kind of doling out this biker, or I'm calling him a biker. You may call him something else, but we need to kind of kill that mask that's over top of him. If you notice my cursor here, it's well, I have the opacity set pretty low, but it's lighter when I go over the top of him, and that's on purpose. So what I want to do is bring back some of the life, and I believe to do that I need to be on black as the foreground color. Black, if you select X on your keyboard, I'm on a Mac, by the way, if you haven't noticed. X on the keyboard will bring the foreground to black here. So if you just keep pressing X, it'll swap those. So white, black, pretty easy. Okay, so I'm going to keep going here, brush him a little bit. All right, and probably, I don't think there's much on the bike. Nah, it's mainly just his back. So you notice I went over his profile, I would say. What's cool and what I just discussed is going back, swapping that color, and you can go back to white and add that back, I believe, or not. Let me double check here. That should be adding it back, but it's not. That's interesting. Wow, okay. This didn't happen in the last video. Okay. Well, I did okay. I might go back and tweak that later on, but for now I think that's the general idea I wanted to do. So since we're in the pixel, we need to swap back out to vector, or draw as they call it. And in this one we added, what did I do? I added a headline and some right align text on our grid, which is marked by these lines, if you can see them. Let me pull them up. Oh, I forgot to add. Did I forget to add that? Okay, so I need to add grids on this artboard. I think we used 1080 or 1070 before. So let's make a block, and I know there's an easier way to do this. I'm just doing it this way because I've had to do it in Photoshop before, so it's whatever. Let's add a fill just for hell of it. Okay, so this thing needs to be centered with the artboard. I think you can select the artboard and the shape. No, you can't. Okay, I'll do it with this guy then. This and this will center, align it, centered, cool. And it looks like it's just off, but we'll bring in guides to marker of place. Easy enough. Maybe a center one for grins. And I'm sure there's cooler ways to set this up. I bet if you go to like view, grid and axis manager, maybe spacing, show grid. So that's that grid. You can use automatic grid. And that's your typical grid, but like I'm talking about grid, web grid, which is like a set pixel width. I don't know. I probably need to make presets, so I won't really worry about that, but that's cool. You can edit that stuff. You can't do that in Photoshop, and that sucks when you can't. Cool. Okay. You learn something new every dang day. Okay. So for this layer, we've got our mask, we've got our gradient. Let's group that. And I think we called it like Y or something. Yeah. Okay. So we need a heading, and I think I used like a subheading style. So this we will do what makes you smile. And I've landed on this headline mainly because, I won't go ahead and say it's final, but it's very something on the packaging itself, so we'll probably run with it for now. But if you remember when I pulled that packaging art up, it is on the back here, what makes you smile, and it's a collage of people in their own different lifestyles, living their lives, and you may have guessed that they're all smiling. That's on purpose. So with that, we're kind of creating this campaign around that concept. So yeah. And then, well, the subhead's 32 pixels, so I'm going to bring that down a bit, or points in this program. I think you can use pixels. I just haven't set that up yet. And then let's grab this for now, just to save some time. And I did notice the gradient's not quite where it needs to be. I need to add some back so this text stands out more. So why don't I do that? Where are we at? Here we go. Wonder if I can adjust this. This is my only beef with this. Like, once you add the gradient, can you even go back and edit it? Yes, you can. Cool. Sorry about that. All right. So it looks like we need to do a little more mask brushing, touch up stuff. So back to pixel persona. And actually, I'm going to go back real quick and make that gradient a little more pronounced. There we go. And then we'll come back in the pixel and dial it back a touch. Make the brush size bigger. You can do that with the curly braces keys. Your right one is bigger, the left one's smaller. Makes the brush smaller. And then that guy. We don't want that there at all. Do this mask. All right, so I think that's why it was messed up. They were both black. Let's go back to black and really highlight this guy as best we can. It's not going to be perfect, but it's not like we're doing crazy Photoshop-y stuff right now. All right, so bear with me here. Okay, so that's where I ended up on that section. It's close to this one. I think it's a little darker in the gradient, but that's kind of cool. I dig it. Then I went into add a shape that mimicked this angle here, which I believe in the last video I had it up a bit higher so the angle was more pronounced, but I went back and kind of tamed it down a bit just because I repeated that down the whole page, and I didn't think it was necessary to go too steep with it. To recreate it, I honestly did it by eye, but what I did to keep it consistent is keep using the same shape. So I'm going to duplicate this shape with Command J and then come down to this, and I think I went something like to that edge, and then since it's a curve I can go ahead and use the key command A is what do they call it, node tool, I think. Yeah, and bring it down to where it looks pretty dang close like that. And I came up here and did, actually that ruined that. Okay, hang on. I need to select this shape, cut it out of there. Let's paste it in outside of this group into the Y section, or on top of it. And then let's make it white. Cool. So that keeps that diagonal thing going on, which is nice to me. A lot of people, I don't know, are doing that these days, so it's kind of trendy, but maybe at some point I can find a way to make it more modern or more original. It's also kind of hard to code, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so the next section I went with a kind of off the page depth kind of feel. Believe I created a new shape. It had, I don't know, width of say, let's do like 800 pixels. A height of, really doesn't matter, but let's do like 750 or some crap. Affinity Designer has absolute or percentage based corner radiuses, which is cool, but I find myself using absolute quite a bit more because it's in the web world. I really don't use percentages in a lot of the stuff I do, but I can see why you might if you do scale some art or something like that and you want it to be the same radius as you go along. I think this was wider. Why don't we go with like 900 or something? Cool. And then I believe from there, radius, I have 6 pixels. Yeah, I carried that over. From there I added a let's add a layer effect, and we will do a outer shadow just to get this thing off the page a bit. So intensity, offset, radius. Radius is what ends up being the big deal with this thing. I don't need intensity set too high. Radius needs to be kind of big. Opacity lower. One thing I just noticed is this is not above that diagonal piece, so let's add that. Okay, so from here, I think before I was cutting off the bike, and I'm glad this one isn't doing that actually. So it's very close to doing that, but it doesn't need to. And the whole point of this photo is kind of to capture that lifestyle thing we were discussing. So going forward, I'll go back to the style guide and show you how I set this up, this little accent. I went with this character and scaled it down a bit. And it ended up being a centerpiece, but it was a left align. And we did a little border that was like 2 pixels high. Let's make it like not that wide. Not that wide either. Okay. Let's make it as wide as this guy. How wide is he? 40. Let's make it an even 50. Oops. Let's do that with constraints. And then go back to that rectangle with the 50. This I don't want constraints. So 50 by 2. And then we'll center these. This I want to be that blue. And I don't want the stroke to be it. I want the fill. And it needs to be above that rectangle. There we go. Cool. Simple enough, but an accent, no doubt. Let's see what I did before. Yeah, that's it there. A little smaller. We'll see how it looks a little bit bigger. So one thing, this section I believe is the Y. So let's add a Y. H2O drink. I love when text is white when you never want it to be. All right, this I believe we use the 333. You'd start to learn your hex codes if you work with web. That is spelled wrong. H2O drink. Yeah. Okay. And I believe I centered that text. I did not center this text. Okay. So the theory behind this section is kind of more or less explaining why you would buy this over, say, something like Crystal Light or Propel or whatever Gatorade puts out or something like that. And the big selling point is obviously that it's all natural. It's good for your teeth. It actually helps your teeth, as opposed to those other sugary drinks that do not. So in this section, that will kind of outline that synopsis. But I'm thinking there might be more bullet point kind of items. I could be wrong, but I added, for the sake of brevity, some paragraph content as well. And yes, it's lorem ipsum for now, but I'll fix that. And for our body content, we use ASAP. It's a Google Web Font, I believe. And it is 17 point, definitely not bold, regular. And it had a line height of 28, which is already set. So cool. And I need more text than that, so why don't I grab some more? I'm using this little app called Little Ipsum. It's pretty cool because you don't have to go to the web to find your lorem ipsum. Also set up, I did in the previous video in Affinity Designer, I think Photoshop too, you can set paragraph margin. So in this little selector here, I set the same line height, so 28. You can see that decrease here, which it does look a little tall, so I might go back to like 12. I'm going to remove this paragraph. I'm going to add some lists. One thing I do know, in any program I've used, lists are just a pain in the ass. So in design even, I don't understand. It just seems like it should be the easiest thing to do, but it's actually easier for me to write a list on the web than it is on an actual application like this, a design app. Anyway, enough complaining. Let's go back. Okay, now 28 looks right. Who knows? So then we'll make a new paragraph. We'll do a bullet point, which is I did a key command on Mac is Option 8. That creates a little bullet for you. So I use that pretty often on some stuff I work on. So let's make a few of these. I do 2 spaces. After the bullet, I should say. Let's do like maybe one that breaks a line. I hate when lists do this, like this thing. I think I'll leave it like that, I guess. And then one more, maybe just a shorter forward one. Okay, cool. And then since a list, typically there's a padding or margin. We can do that, I believe, like so. Let's do 20 pixels. And let's call this back. Cool. That's close. It's not really what I want. Okay. Wait, is this a list? No, it's tab stop. Okay, sorry. All right. So that is the content we use for that section. And this more or less is a quick call out to it. Give it a read. There may be a link to call to action here that ends up being like a, watch this video or learn more or something like that. We'll see. It hasn't gotten that far yet as far as my thoughts or plans for that, so we'll see. Let's make it a little more proportioned. So the next section I took the same block here. As you can see, it's white, so you can't see it easily, but I'm going to duplicate that with Command J and pull that down to make a new section. And I use an off white color, I should say. And for the sake of the video, I'm just going to grab it because I like this gray. Cool. And then what I ended up doing is making this quite a bit larger. Grab the nodes and just pull straight down, holding shift. Keeps it proportion. Then what I'm gonna do though, I might scoot this up just a touch. It looks a little unbalanced. Yeah, okay. And then I'm gonna group this stuff because trying to find it is kind of a pain sometimes. All right, so this will be a new group, and we're gonna do, there we go. We are going to make this one a section called Why Promote Oral Health. And that, like I said before, is on the back of the box itself, as you can see here. So let's make a new heading under this group. I think this group, yeah. Text there. So why this needs to be right left aligned. Promote oral health. So this is more or less what I'm thinking of, like the mission statement, or maybe a bit about Jamie, who is the founder of the company here and the maker of the product. I'll talk about her more in a minute. And not that group, this group. Got it. There's and in Affinity Designer, I don't know. I'm coming from Photoshop, so I'm biased, but it's a little smoother in Photoshop, I have to say. All right, so now that we're here, I believe I added that content, so I'm going to open that. That's an old one. This one. I'm going to copy this and paste it back. Let's remember to do a frame text tool. You will regret it if not. So then we add this. It has terrible formatting. Let's make it body for now, just to get something going. Served in individual packets on the go lifestyle. All right, cool. So that's a little better. We need to make this our body font, which is ASAP, and it'll be 17 points over 28. Cool. Why does that look smaller? It's not. Okay. So I think what I'll do, I think I like to highlight that little line too a little bit. So make it bold. Affinity Designer lets you do Command B. I don't know. Some apps let you do that, but some don't. And it's like, I don't know, a universal thing to me. Like, why wouldn't that be bold? Or if you do Command I, I'd make it italic. Anyway, I like that they do that. So I believe on the other design, this is still, yeah, I ended up pulling this series of images from the style guide I created and put it in this container, scaled it down a bit, and rotated it just a touch. So where that lemon in the middle is kind of touching there, looks like I'm gonna have to go down to like there. So I need to make this section larger again. Just enough to where that's like right there. Yeah. And I'm thinking like when I go to code this, that stuff might be kind of moving in the background. Maybe I'll slice this image in half so these move a little slower than these when you scroll, or something cool like that. Obviously nothing too taxing, because I don't know how many websites overdo that crap and it's just annoying in the end. So don't overdo it. I think I made this should be a little less wide. Maybe we'll do like 680 there. Align that better. Cool. This is terribly aligned now. There we go. Maybe we can add like social media links there or something. Those I already know I'll put in the footer, but or maybe it could be another call to action to purchase. Maybe I'll do that. Let's grab a button. So this is new. I didn't add this in the other video. You're seeing it live, folks. All right, so let's add this button here. Wonder what it should say. I do need to put it in the right group. I think this is it. Yeah. No, it didn't go where I wanted it. There we go. So let's make it, maybe just try again. Try H2 H2O drink. And then for grins, maybe we can add an icon like an arrow. I use a new app called Lingo from the makers of Noun Project. Definitely recommend checking it out. It's pretty cool as far as organizing your icons and getting different. My favorite feature is the different cuts. So say in typo here, or in typo, whatever you want to call it. I only imported it as SVG, but the Lingo app creates these file cuts for me, so I can just pull these and drag them into my project. It's pretty sweet. So the only thing that bugs me is I cannot control the size of the previews here. That's kind of a bummer. But anyway, I'm going to look for maybe either just a basic arrow, maybe an arrow down like that, or if there's like a drink looking icon. In the first video, I used an app called Icon Jar. I kind of use both of these. This one I do for the sake of if I need it in Photoshop, for instance. I have such an old version that I can't import SVG. It's kind of retarded, but yeah, small little gotchas that happen along the creative journey. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm trying to find something we can use here. Maybe sorry if this is hard to see. Man, there's nothing. Let's go back to the arrow. Screw it. Let's do just like a chevron down. And since we're in a vector program, SVG should be no problem. Let's get it in here, and I'm going to, since it's embedded, that kind of sucks. You can't edit it directly, but what you can do is this color overlay. That should work. I mean, I wonder if I could even just have the logo there, but that's overdoing it, I think. And I put that on the wrong design. So let me add this to both for grins. I'm gonna group it. Well, here's a good reason to use a new feature in Affinity Designer. There's one called symbols. And if you've used Sketch at all, you already know what this is, but Affinity Designer finally created their version of it. It's a bit different. There's a palette you can pull out and grab like this, and then you can detach the symbol if you don't want it to have the same characteristics, or you can just update them all similarly like you would in Sketch. Different ways to go about fixing the same problem. Both are, I think, executed well, so I'm happy with it. And so here's the cool thing. Like, okay, I want to update this to I don't know, by the other design updated in real time. That's pretty sick. No? Think so? Sketch doesn't do that. So pretty cool. I'll let you be the judge. All right, so I think we're getting close. I think the last thing we did, or I did before I realized no audio recorded on the last video, is to add kind of a placeholder for now. I need to get a photo of Jamie that's acceptable for the site here. I think we have some. I just need to edit it. We took it under some different lighting and situations like that. So I will do that in the next video. I made the placeholder white, and I'm thinking of it being kind of something that's floating. This needs to come down, I think. And I think along with the lemons here, it will kind of be moving as you scroll to, maybe transitioning from one side to the next or something cool like that. So I added a bit of effect, which is just actually, yeah, very little, but just some drop shadow, or outer shadow as they call it here. Radius should be pretty large. Intensity can come back. We don't need that dark. Maybe go gray. Increase the opacity. What do you think? Maybe round the corners a bit. Oh, other thing you can do. You see this single radius checkbox up here. That's for every corner. You can go in and select each one. It can be different, different styles, different radiuses themselves. Very, very handy. Again, I like absolute sizes, so I'm going to do that and go back to maybe 3 pixels. So that's within our grid. Maybe I'll bring this down a touch. Same with this. Shit. Okay. There. Right. This needs to grow a touch more. I don't really want the lemons to go outside of this block. Just a little. Cool. And that's where I ended up. I might decrease this a bit as far as size goes. I don't really like it way over there, so maybe we'll center it within that column. Yeah. Oops. Hang on. I didn't like that last edit I did. We'll go up with this. This can be maybe aligned with the paragraphs. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's where I left off in the last failed attempt. Like I said, I changed these links in the heading here. I may add some more to the mix. I just haven't figured out every feature from Jamie yet that she wants to kind of highlight. We're working on that behind the scenes, but this is a good start, I think. One thing I plan to maybe try is incorporate some raindrops or more water drops in the background here that either are moving or somehow kind of transcend when you scroll. The same with this guy. This may stay on top like this, or it might actually just kind of get clipped by this once you scroll. I haven't figured that part out yet, but I plan to kind of go through that whole thing with you guys too. Yeah, so we went with a bit darker color scheme here as opposed to the one before, but generally the same style, a little bit different positioning, but that's cool. And this is a little narrower, I believe. Yeah, I actually like it quite a bit. The margins are larger. This guy was a little bigger, which is cool. It's part of the branding. we added this buy now button, which can either link to that or maybe this video again. I don't know. I don't know if I want to just bombard the user with buy buttons. Buy. So many people do that. It's kind of annoying. We need to get a photo of Jamie. I think realistically this will be smaller. Maybe we'll have a couple photos. Something like so. Oop, I need to show the grid. Yeah, maybe one's bigger than the other, but they kind of work off each other. Another parallaxy thing that could be cool is like as you scroll, one goes a little faster than the other. So maybe we'll work with that. And this background image of the lemons, that's a pretty cool photo. I was pleased with it when I found it. I believe it was for free too. One of the photography stock photo sites. I can't remember which one, otherwise I'd tell you, but there's plenty. And I think that wraps up this video. The next video will be more or less the how we're going to go about displaying the e-commerce portion of this, which it's going to be integrated in some way. Haven't figured out which e-commerce platform we're going to go with yet, but thinking of maybe just doing a Stripe kind of form, or just a buy button with the Stripe overlay that you see on a lot of sites. So nothing too advanced, but definitely integrated to accept different forms of payment, so anyone can buy this and make it easy, as well as shipping and stuff like that. So we'll see. So the next video will be outlining that, and possibly just the footer, and maybe bringing back some real content into the mix more than just this. And I think that's it. All right. Thanks for watching.